Okay, thank you. It's more of a thank you than a question. One thing that you suggested earlier was your recovery is very successful, but I think a lot of people who've recovered from something will say you can do whatever happens. So I've got a daughter who's in recovery from Guillain-Barré syndrome, and a lot of survivors that say, well, I'm back to walking normally and I can do it. And I think something's really clear, and I want to thank you for this. We said that not everybody's recovery gets the same level as everyone else's, and that's me really touched to say thank you for acknowledging that and also making that a message that you share with a lot of people.
Do you know, thank you, because one thing I do want to say is I've not met anybody who's had, if you see my brain scans, I took them and broke them into them, and I've got a picture of my clot, the hole that's there now, and you know, and neuroscientists have seen it, and if they'd seen that, they'd have said the prognosis for this patient, because I went to a literary book festival and the guy said, that's not your brain. I said, he shocked me. And so it was substantial. But I also know I had a little channel which had the neuroplasticity effect. Without that, you don't have any opportunity, you just have the movement of the eyes. But what I would say is, I've never met anyone who's had such a good recovery with that level of injury as me, and I think a lot of that is the pushing. But what I would say to caveat it, I've met so many people at all sorts of stages, and even have met people who've never recovered. Christine Waddell had some things to focus on, I had some changes in her life, which is extraordinary. But, you know, Katja in Finland, I went to go and see her twice, she was a supermodel at 19. She had locked-in syndrome on a job. She never recovered. She is the most glamorous woman. She employs, you know, with her money, she got married actually 6 years after her diagnosis. Bit weird, but works for them. They're very, I've never met anyone happier. She goes around, they do TEDx's, they do books, they've done this, they do that. I mean, it's incredible. I know people who never recovered, apart from having a little bit of movement in their mouth, and their mouth paint, they're artists. And they produce some extraordinary work. I know people that are DJs who use eye tracking equipment to be a DJ. So even when you don't have the best outcomes, to think and assume you'd have no quality of life is wrong, because it's just so wrong. And I did mention that at the start with me, I have no quality of life. Well, for me, to see my kids, in those days, for me to get quality of life when I couldn't eat, drink, brush my own teeth, was sitting outside with the sun on my face, immobile, with blankets all over me because I had no way to regulate my temperature. Or me, as I progressed, being able to hold a toothbrush, or have 6 teaspoons of tea. That was real quality of life to me. This is what you're going to get your head around, you know, being able to see my kids grow up. You know, some people, I've met 3, or I've heard of 3 people who didn't want to live, and they just starved themselves. I mean, who knows what their outcomes would have been had they not done that. But they decided they didn't want to. And also, very quickly, met a guy in Belfast who was a boxer, 35. He had an agreement with his wife that he ever got to a stage that he couldn't wipe his own backside, he wouldn't want to live. The worst thing happened, he had a brainstem stroke. The wife in ICU was given the option to turn off the machine, and she said, well, I know he wants to, because we already have this agreement. The protocol, I don't know it entirely, but the protocol was the psychologist had to go and sit there and say, because you're not cognitive, you do realise, do you want to live or do you want to die? The upshot it was, in that situation, he did a complete 360. He wanted to live to see his kids, and he had to convince the psychologist who he did, but that she couldn't convince the wife, and they had to repeat the test 3 times because she was not convinced. He got the result that, well, they'd agreed on, that he'd changed his mind, because it's little things. I mean, I will also just very quickly say that one piece of hair in the wind when he sat in the wind and no one else can see it and you're looking at it, that was not quality, that was bloody irritating. Anyway, out to go. Let's re-have fun.